planes hit the building, he made billions of dollars by shorting everything as the building got hit. Steve is like watching the news and sees Trump get shot at and is like, ETFs. This is going to happen now. He's going to get elected. He's like, wait, did it hit him? No, it didn't hit him. Okay, ETFs. It's awesome. It's great. And I like how he said, I'm somewhere between libertarian and anarchist. So he could have also said, I'm slightly to the left of Attila the Hun. That would have been a good... You're welcome. I'd also like to buy you a drink later, Steve, and ask you where I should put my money. I feel like that, I don't know if that's legal to say or whatever, but I was a Series 7 stockbroker from 1995 to 1995. I did it 11 months. 11 months I was a Series 7 stockbroker right out of college, and I sold thousands and thousands of shares of the Seligman Telecommunications Fund that only put people in technology stocks. And the Dow Jones went from 1,800 to 4,500 in those 11 months that I was a stockbroker. And I still get Christmas cards from people that I put in that technology fund, which, yes, I said 1,800. The Dow was at 1,800, and now it's at what? 50,000, 40,000, 10,000, 30,000. I don't know what it's at. But I remember back then thinking, this is just all smoke and mirrors. I'm like a three-card Monty just putting people into this stock that was going to go up, and it was like Netscape Navigator went public. Netscape, remember that? And like Google wasn't even a thing. Anyway, those guys were really making me feel like I should move my money around, and I got depressed. I believed everything Steve was saying for like an hour, and then he's like, yeah, we're going into recession, everybody's going to be poor. And I was like, oh, I don't want to believe him now. But I already do, so that's not good. And he's like, people who make under $80,000. I'm like, go on. Yeah, they didn't pay me much to be here, if you're wondering. So I'm glad 9 of you stayed for this next thing. That's good. A lot of you have left. I feel like we thinned out the crowd a little bit. So that's not awesome. But anyway, we're going to move on to our next thing that we're going to go. Zhou is the founder and CEO of the globally licensed exchange Coins.xyz and Coins.ph, the Philippines' leading crypto exchange with over 18 million users. He's also a strategic advisor and investor at Old Fashioned Research, and was previously CFO at Beyonce from 2018 to 2021. Binance is the word that I just said is Beyonce. Did I say I'm 53 years old? Okay. Binance from 2018 to 2021. His leadership experience includes serving as the vice chairman of Grindr and CFO at multiple public tech companies. That's what's written here. I didn't make that up. Wei began his career at Goldman Sachs and holds a bachelor's degree from Harvard University in economics and East Asian studies. A sought-after speaker, he has appeared at leading industry events such as Solana's Breakpoint, Stellar's Median, and the Singapore FinTech Festival. The last paragraph, I've been distracted by the fact that he worked at a place named Saks and Grindr. I'm sorry I got distracted by that. I'm sorry, and Goldman Sachs and then Grindr, like Gold Sachs and Grindr on a Harvard-educated man, it just makes me like this guy already. Please welcome Wei Zhou. Sorry. Yep.
Thanks, Marty. Quite a journey to get here. Excuse me. So I'm really happy to be here to actually share, I think, something a little bit different and unique when we're sort of, talking a lot about, I think, whether it's markets, whether it's Litecoin, whether it's Bitcoin. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what we're doing in terms of bringing a global diaspora on chain, and how I think this thing could be replicated for many different diasporas. And I'll explain sort of a little bit. I think this is a Telegram chat that I had with someone that was a community manager for an AI meme coin called Turbo. And then it was quite interesting because I've been talking to him about getting his coin listed, and I was learning a little bit about what is an AI meme coin in the first place. So this is at the end of the chat that he said, for transparency, because it's kind of anonymous. I didn't know who he was, but it was just some guy I was talking to. He says, for transparency, I am a OFW here in Saudi, but I'll be back home in the Philippines in a couple of days for good. And then I was like, we're talking about how we can help OFWs in the GCCs, the Gulf region, right? And he says, yes, I'll be great. I worked here for 10 years, and crypto made it possible for me to come back. Wow, that's an amazing story. I'd love to hear it from you. So I met him later, and then like I said, we're pushing PHPC, which is a stablecoin, that's a peso-backed stablecoin, to be listed on UAE, United Arab Exchanges right now. And then he said, I'm converting some of my money to PHPC in the following days. So there's a bunch of terms here that I want to sort of just cover. So OFW is a term that we use in the Philippines called overseas foreign workers. So if you don't know that much about the Philippines, there's about 15 million overseas workers. So if you go to major cities in Asia like Hong Kong or Singapore and you hang out on weekends in city squares, you basically see a lot of domestic helpers that hang out there. And then if you go to cities like Dubai or Riyadh or any of the cities in the Middle East, anytime you basically see a lot of basically non-natives. Like for example, in Qatar, there's only about 400,000 sort of native population, but there's over 6 or 7 million overseas workers that sort of help work there. And it's not just Filipinos; it's Indians, Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, and then if you go to wherever you go in the world, I think less so here in the U.S. But we sort of see them too in terms of but the sort of the major diaspora that we see in the U.S. are not necessarily from Asia, but more so from Latin America. So I think this is sort of, and then you sort of see this diaspora sort of all over the world essentially, and then historically, they've had problems sending money home. Right, which is one of the original missions. If you go back to the original mission statement of Bitcoin, it's a peer-to-peer payment network. And what we're on a mission to do here at Coins is we want to make that process as smooth and as fast and as cheap as possible, right? Creating what I call a T+0+0 environment where you can basically get instantly money sent without any settlement time, and then basically having that fees to be as close to zero as possible. So I'll cover a little bit about Philippines and why sort of I came made a pretty interesting journey to sort of come to run Coins, which is the largest licensed exchange in the Philippines. And then I think will be true, I think, for a lot of the other emerging market countries. For the Philippines, for example, it's about 120 million people. Unlike sort of a lot of the developed countries in Asia, it actually has a really healthy demographics curve, right? If you look at sort of it's like the perfect bell-shaped curve, whereas the median age is only about 25 years old, and it's actually one of the few countries in the world that has actually a very, it's like 2 to 3+ sort of birth. So it actually has a very net positive birth rates, due to cultural reasons and religious reasons, right? And so it's very young. And then about 60% are internet users. So it's home to a very young and tech-savvy population that is rapidly adopting crypto. But sort of that's domestic. Globally, what I think I showed this slide earlier is that there's about 50 million Filipino that work and live overseas, both as expats, immigrants, or as well as overseas workers. And then the annual remittance of this diaspora is about $40 billion a year, and that's just the retail remittance. And then the top remittance corridors, I think, spans North America, where U.S. is a major source of remittance of about $15 billion a year. And then the Middle East, Asia, like Saudi is about 2, UAE is about 2, Singapore, Hong Kong are all major corridors. And then in Asia, I think, Qatar, Taiwan, Korea. So basically, so you have a lot of sort of both, sample, that's just one sample size, right? But if you expand that to countries like India, to countries like Bangladesh, or countries like Mexico, right? Because the top 4 are sort of top 5 global sort of remittance intake in countries in the world are countries like India, China, Mexico, Philippines, and I think the next on the list is actually Nigeria. But what's going on here is I think most people sort of that live in the U.S. don't really see things from the other side. Like for me personally, having grown up and then educated here, grown up in the U.S. and educated here, but then spent most of my time living and working overseas, I kind of sort of see the pain point in terms of even me sending money back home to my parents or my parents sending money to me, every time is like a $10, $20 charge for on the SWIFT system, right? That is until we have this thing called stablecoins, right? So what stablecoins has done, and then what Coins has done specifically in terms of how we deploy stablecoins, a little bit about ourselves first is that Coins is a company that was founded in the Philippines in 2014, and it was actually one of the first licensed exchanges, anywhere globally. It was launched more like a Coinbase kind of for the Philippines, so it's actually a place where a lot of the earlier adopters of Bitcoin basically bought Bitcoin on our platform, and then we have about 18 million users on our app, right? But sort of the major use case that we have now, other than sort of buying and investing into crypto, is actually on the remittance side. we were, and sort of how we make that possible as a licensed business is that in addition to a crypto exchange, we also have what I call like an EMI, which is a payment license. For crypto exchanges, when you send money in and out of crypto exchanges, you can only do it to same named accounts. But if you add but if you have an EMI, you can actually send that to anyone. So what we've sort of built on top of our crypto infrastructure is actually we added a fiat structure, fiat disbursement structure as well. So a lot of users and not just individuals, but also businesses can actually send money to our exchange, whether it's USDT. Originally, before stablecoins, so they were actually sending, Bitcoin, Litecoin, and XRP, right? Those are sort of and then with the introduction of USDT and USDT, the last, about I think 5 or 6 years ago, most of the volume actually are coming through sort of US dollar-backed stablecoins now. So that'll basically get converted into pesos on our exchange, and then we'll actually disperse that directly into users, either wallets or bank accounts, and even cash pickup points. And what we're doing now at Coins is, in addition to sort of supporting major dollar stablecoins, we actually launched our own peso-backed stablecoin. So this is one-to-one backed, and it's actually approved by the central bank. And what we hope to do is to expand this into other blockchains. I think we're looking to work with Litecoin if that's possible down the road. But what's really more interesting is we want to actually expand our business globally. And I'll touch up on that a little bit, because right now, for example, we're talking with some organizations here in the US about activating that corridor that you saw earlier, right, in terms of the US to the Philippines corridor. We're activating the UAE to Philippines corridor, and then the Europe to UAE and the end of the Philippines corridor. And what's really cool is that this, once we build this network, it's actually quite interesting in that we're in a process of taking this global. And what I mean by that is, in addition to the Philippines, we recently launched the same services that we offer in the Philippines in Brazil as well, and then are also looking to expand our licensing regimes into Africa as well. So we're currently licensed as an exchange in Mauritius, and then are also looking to getting licenses, I think, in South Africa and in Nigeria. And then in Southeast Asia, we're currently fully licensed in addition to the Philippines and Thailand. And I've set up basically corresponding partnerships in Singapore and Hong Kong. And what's really cool about this network is that once these last mile connections, or what I call fiat nodes, are built, we actually bring this 24/7 crypto-enabled remittance network, right, with a local 24, what I call sort of the local 24/7 fiat network. And I think that's where we can actually really sort of enable a lot of the help that we wanted to achieve. So, I'll stop here. Thanks, guys.